New year, same us, Alexis Nunes alongside Nate Saunders, 7 days into the new year. And if you looked at social media this morning, you'll see Max Verstappen posting some news today that he has signed again with Red Bull until 2023. And I know we're going to get into that in just a bit. But Nate, the question that everyone's going to be asking is, how does this affect Lewis Hamilton and his Mercedes negotiations?
Well, it's a great birthday present for Lewis Hamilton. So he turned 35 the same day that Max announced that deal. It's huge for him because this whole year has really been about what's Lewis going to do, what's Max going to do. Like you said, 7 days in, we know what Max is doing now. And really now the attention turns to what Lewis does with that Ferrari link. We all heard that at the end of last season. And Mercedes has really lost all negotiating power it had before. It could say, well, if you go and join Ferrari next year, then we've got Verstappen to lean on to, as a fallback option. And he's completely gone now, and you can't really see a top level, a top caliber guy that they can turn to if Hamilton leaves. So the onus is on them now to re-sign him, and Lewis can kind of name his price to Mercedes and say, if you want me, give me the deal to stay.
Well, I mean, the ball's in Lewis's court, and of course that's a good court to be in, don't we know that? So somebody else that we're talking about too, though, before we go back to Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo now, where does this leave him in the whole mess?
Yeah, I think he's actually a really interesting part of this, because if whatever Lewis does, I think Ricciardo has a good option. If Hamilton goes across to Ferrari, which could happen, I'm still on the fence about whether he would actually make that move. It's quite a risky move. But if he did do that, Ricciardo looks like the best option for Mercedes. I don't think they'll go into next season with Bottas as their lead driver. And by next season, I mean 2021. Bottas, they've only ever given 1 year deals to, so they're not convinced in him long term. They have George Russell at Williams, but he's a young driver, unproven. Ricciardo is a known quantity, he's a race winner, and actually probably deserves the chance to have a championship winning car. So he could go to Mercedes. But if Lewis stays, Ferrari's still not convinced about Vettel long term, and Ricciardo, he can speak Italian, he can charm the Italian media, he charms every part of the media. But again, those same qualities, they'll want that alongside Charles Leclerc, who they've tied down long term. And I think Ricciardo would go into that environment and actually be quite easy to work with, and we saw Vettel and Leclerc kind of clashing a few times last year. I think Ricciardo and Leclerc would still do that, but I think it might be easier to manage. Ricciardo's maybe an easier personality to work with. So he's definitely one to look at if Hamilton doesn't end up kind of making that step and joining Ferrari.
All right, well, let's rein things back now, because this is supposed to be the Max Verstappen show. He's the one that had the news that started us off. So, okay, till 2023, yay or nay in this one, given the fact that, of course, he was on the radar for some others as well.
Well, it's a huge statement of intent from him and a declaration of faith in where Red Bull are right now. Red Bull haven't won a championship since 2013, so the fact that he's committed to this project till 2023, they've only got their Honda deal till 2021. So he's saying he thinks they can win championships, win races over the next 2 years, enough to extend that deal long term, because there's no way you would sign if you thought, well, I don't know for the last 2 years of that deal what Red Bull's going to be using engine-wise. So for Red Bull, it's a massive win for them, and for Honda, who for years have kind of been scrabbling around, clinging on to Formula One, it seemed. They've now got one of the best drivers on the grid, if not the best, hanging on by like a thread at one point when McLaren got rid of them. And now, I would say the second best driver on the grid behind, the best behind Lewis, has now committed to their project long term. It's a huge statement of intent, and it just shows you how much confidence he has in them. He won 3 races with them in 2019, and he clearly thinks that that's just a building block. He tweeted today and said, I want to win championships with Red Bull. So they're going to be absolutely delighted right now with that, because a lot of us thought he would just be, either off to Mercedes or basically putting himself on the market. So the fact he hasn't done that is huge.
Love a bit of loyalty. We don't see that very often. Anything else you're expecting in the next coming weeks?
Well, no, I think it's kind of taken the wind out of some of the sails for the driver market, because we thought this would drag out long into the year. So the interesting thing will be whether, if Mercedes can get Lewis tied down before the start of winter testing, then all the focus going into the year is on Vettel. So that will be really interesting. And then it will literally be like Vettel, Ricciardo. They've got Mick Schumacher, Michael's son, but I don't think they'd throw him into the deep end. He's not even driven a Formula One car in a weekend yet, in a race weekend. So that would make it interesting. But already what we were expecting to be this blockbuster driver market has narrowed down a bit, because Leclerc's got his long-term deal, which we kind of expected, but Verstappen is off the market now. So with each one, the options dwindle down. But who knows? I mean, Ricciardo gave us a big shock in 2018 when he signed for Renault. So maybe we'll have a big shocking moment like that again. But there's less chance of it now. All
right, so there you go. One person has committed his future, but Nate's still expecting. We could probably see a big shock here or there, somewhere. 50%. We'll see. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.